Hello, my name is Chris. You're watching Guitar 101 brought to you by JamPlay.com. We're starting the new year off right by teaching you how to play guitar. No doubt many of you watching received a guitar for Christmas, or maybe you've been playing for a while and it's part of your New Year's goals to pick that guitar back up and start playing. This course is for both of you. It's for those people who have never played before. The guitar feels completely foreign to you, but you know you want to play. And it's for those people who played a while ago and now maybe want to get a little bit more serious about it. For all of you who have played just a little bit, I want you to do something. I'm going to do it too. If you're a right-handed guitar player, like I am, I want you to turn your guitar the other way, like this. Just holding the guitar like this feels unnatural. It feels weird. It feels foreign. And when I try to do, we'll ignore tuning and all that stuff for right now, but when I try to even do something as simple as a D chord shape, I've got to really try hard. And hand position, everything is totally off. I feel like a complete beginner in terms of technique. This is how those people watching this stream, this is how they feel when they haven't started the guitar at all. So if you've already played a little bit, we're going to be going over some things that are very, very basic because we want everybody to be able to start. We want everybody to be able to come to the table and feel like that they can take something away from each one of these courses in Guitar 101. So try this. Keep this in mind. Try to play a D chord or a G chord shape down here if you already know those, and it will give you a perspective of what it's like when you did pick up the guitar for the first time and help you to understand maybe the range of people that are in here watching. There are going to be people that are bare bones beginners, that they feel awkward like this, and that's okay. That's where you need to start. That's absolutely where you're going to start. There are going to be people that already know basic chords, that already know the names and the parts of the guitar. This first set, week 1 of 10, is getting acquainted with your instrument. So we're going to cover the basics of the guitar itself. We're going to discuss tuning. We're going to discuss basic practice posture. We're going to talk a little bit about both hands and the technique. And then, believe it or not, at the end of this session, you're going to be able to walk away playing with real music, even if you've never touched the guitar in your life. So, we're going to get started as soon as I fix my footstool that I knocked over. All right. So to start with, a basic guitar overview. You've just gotten your guitar, maybe it's been sitting in the corner for a little bit and you've been looking at it, and you don't really know much about it. Most people understand the basic names, but I'm going to go over them anyway. Tuners, neck, fretboard, frets. Now this is really important. When I say we're going to play something on a particular fret, like I'm going to play a note on the 2nd fret, I don't mean that I'm going to play a note on the fret, on the metal. I mean I'm going to play a note between the previous metal and the metal that I'm referring to. So if I say 2nd fret, I mean behind the 2nd fret, in between the 1st and 2nd pieces of metal. Strings, we've got 6 strings, and they're named as follows: 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. That's right, your highest string is your 1, your 1st string. Your lowest string, and we're not talking about high, low, height, physical, we're talking about pitch. Lowest string is 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Going the other way now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that's really important. It's easy. I know I did this when I was first learning. I wanted this to be 6 and this to be 1, but this is 6. The lowest string is the highest number. We'll talk a little bit about holding a pick and fingering. On this hand, I'm going to refer to these fingers as 1, 2, 3, 4. Same with this hand. If we do any, we're not really going to do much of that in this course, but you should know this anyway. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's how we're going to be referring to them. To hold a pick, if you want to play with a pick, go ahead and open up your hand like this. Put your fingers in for now so you're making a gun with your hand. Fold your first finger in like this. Place the pick so that when you close your thumb around it, you've got that going on. Now relax your fingers. Relax these fingers, your finger and your thumb, and you've got a great starting point for your pick. Now notice, I tensed up to get the positioning, and then I relaxed to get the final position. This is how you want it to work. In terms of overall posture, a lot of people have different ideas about posture. The way we're going to do posture and practice position in this course, we're going to play in what's traditionally known as the classical position. The classical position is, I'm a right-handed guitar player, and I'm playing with the guitar resting on my non-dominant leg, my left leg. It's resting. I'm not doing this. This is great. A lot of people play this way. The reason we're not going to do that in this course is because this, in combination with a footstool or a pile of books, sets you up to have the same general posture when you're sitting or when you're standing. So if I were to stand right now, put a strap on and stand, it wouldn't be a whole lot different. Whereas if I'm like this, and then I stand, see what happens? You move the guitar. You're changing the way that your wrist feels. You're changing the way that your strumming arm interacts with the weight of your elbow against the body of the guitar. And you're changing the way your back works too. You're sort of twisting things. This way, everything is aligned just as it would be if you were standing. It's also, once you get the footstool, talking a lot about the footstool, you can find one of these for $20 if you don't already have one. But, a pile of books or a box with stuff in it works fine too. The nice thing about the footstool is it's variable height, so you can adjust it based on the height of your chair. I also recommend it if you guys watched the supplemental material or the promo material and read through the write-up. I also recommend practicing with an armless chair. This chair is great because it has no arms, and because it actually is a variable height. You can adjust the height on the bottom. I recommend doing this rather than a stool. Stools, a lot of times you can't touch the ground with a stool because they're a little higher. A variable height, no arm chair is probably the best way to go. If you can set yourself up to be comfortable when you're practicing, before you even play a note, take some of this stuff into account, there's going to be a lot of things that are going to be solved already. We get a ton of questions about, I can't play this chord, I can't do this. And when I actually see the guitar players playing, they're doing this. Trying to practice like this. Look at the wrist position. That you're having to work too hard. If you're slouching on a couch, or even if you're playing like this and maybe resting on a leg, some people will do that. These things, while they might be comfortable, are not setting you up to learn well. And it's going to be some of those things where you're going to be having trouble with something, and you're not going to attribute it to poor posture or not understanding how to get out of the gate well, and you're going to struggle more than you need to. So, for this course, we're going to start like this. We're going to be going over a little bit of electric and acoustic stuff tonight, but in every course, or in every lesson in this course. But it's important to notice with an acoustic, it's a lot bigger. With an acoustic guitar, you've got a lot more surrounding you, and so there's different points of contact when you're strumming than there is with an electric guitar. Right now, all I want you to do is file that, keep that in the back of your mind, because it's not going to matter that much for what we're doing today. But do know that they're different instruments. They have the same tuning, they've got different sounds, they're approached differently. You can do the same things on them, but the feel and the adjustment periods for both are quite different. A lot of people ask me, should I start on electric or acoustic? Well, at the point we're at now, start on what you have. If you have both, I feel like starting on electric guitar is actually easier. It gets you playing sooner because you don't have the physical barrier. Playing notes on an acoustic guitar, if you've never done it before, is very difficult. It requires a lot more strength. It requires a lot more effort to get the notes to ring out well. Whereas with an electric guitar, the action's lower, the strings are smaller, and you have an amplified sound. So you get more for your effort with an electric. When I first started playing, initially, it was in my late single digits. I picked up my dad's Yamaha acoustic guitar, and it's a great guitar, but the action's a little bit high. I'd never played before. I tried to learn a few chords, and I put it down. I wasn't interested in it. I couldn't make it sound right. And a couple years later, I bought an electric guitar and just took off. And maybe some of that was the fact that I had been younger and maybe not quite as driven or interested at that point. But I felt like when I did pick up the electric guitar and I was able to, without much physical effort, play a couple chords, it was really rewarding and encouraging. Once I got comfortable with my electric, I went back to that same Yamaha acoustic and was able to play on it just fine because I got over this confidence barrier. So keep that in mind as you're starting out, that it's fine to start on either one. But if you have a choice, maybe do these first several weeks with your electric and then try going back and forth between the two. I will say this also before we continue. This is part 1 of a 10-week beginner course. If you're a member of JamPlay, then you're going to be able to watch all 10 weeks, download the supplemental material, tablature, backing tracks, all the things that I use to teach. And you're going to be able to view all 10 weeks. If you're not a paying member, then you're only going to be able to view this first week. So I encourage you, pop on over to JamPlay. If you want to get started on the right foot with guitar, you're going to need all 10 weeks. So I encourage you to do that. Also, each one is live, so you can interact directly with me, but they're available on demand forever at jamplay.com, so you can watch them later. So before we move on, I'm going to take 2 questions. Are there any questions regarding posture, regarding getting acquainted with the guitar, or anything else related? No questions yet? Okay. Cool. So, after you get mildly acquainted with your guitar, the first thing you want to do is tune. The easiest way to tune is to grab an electric tuner. You can use a Headstock tuner, or you can use a plug-in tuner. And most guitar tuners are able to dictate to you which string you're playing in terms of numbers, which we already covered. If you don't know, or if your tuner doesn't talk to you in numbers, they're going to talk to you in letters. So the first thing we're going to do before we tune is get acquainted with the names of the guitar strings in terms of the note names, the letters associated with each of them. So, string 6 is a low E. It's an E. String 5 is an A. String 4 is a D. String 3 is a G. String 2 is a B. And string 1 is also an E. So strings 1 and 6 are E. And you have E, A, D, G, B, and E. I'll do that a couple more times slow. If you have your guitar with you, which you should, name them along with me. E, A. Your guitar might be a bit out of tune, that's okay. We'll fix that in a minute. D, G, B, and E. One more time. E, A, D, G, B, and E. So if you have an electric tuner, whether it's a headstock tuner or a plug-in tuner, you can tune up. The tuner is going to needle it right in place, so you're going to know, or turn green or something, and let you know when that note is in tune. And if you know the names of the strings, you should have no problem. What I'm going to show you now, though, is tuning by ear to a reference pitch. This is the way I learned how to tune. We had a tuning fork, and you would bang the fork on something, and then you'd put it on the surface of the guitar, and then you'd get a ooh or something like that, and then you'd tune to that. I don't have a tuning fork today, but I do have a reference pitch. I have an E reference pitch. If you have a piano around that happens to be in tune, or there's all sorts of things. You could even tune your first string and your sixth string with your tuner, and then practice tuning the rest by ear. So I'm going to show you how to do that now. This is commonly referred to as the 5th fret tuning method. And if you haven't played the guitar at all, you can do this, and it's a great way to get your hands on the fretboard without feeling the pressure of having to play anything. It'll get your hand acquainted with the feel of playing just one note at a time. So, reference pitch, E. We'll go a little higher. Now, different guitars with different headstocks are going to do slightly different things. This has 3 tuners on one side, 3 tuners on the other side. So you want to look at how your strings are wound, and you want to experiment. Generally, turning the tuning peg away from you is going to draw your guitar strings sharp. I just tuned both of my E's slightly sharp from the reference pitch. Tuning them toward you is going to lower the pitch. So I'm going to play my reference pitch again, and I'm going to tune my first string. This is a great drill, even if you've never played before, in getting the pitches in your ears. It takes a while to get this. That's why I recommend having an electric tuner to check yourself. That's pretty close. A little sharp. Sharp means too high. Let's try that. Go to a lower E. Yeah, that feels good. So I know both of my E's are in tune, and it's important to tune both of your E's to a reference pitch, because as you go through this tuning method I'm going to show you, if you're a little bit off when you get down here, you know that these are in tune. So here's the 5th fret tuning method. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go on my low E string. I'm going to play on the 5th fret, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I know that I'm not going to be playing on the fret, I'm going to be playing slightly behind the 5th fret. For now, right in the middle is good. And we're not going to go too much into specific technique when it comes to, how to hold the note or anything, but right now you want to be able to play the single note. I'm going to play it with my 2nd finger in such a way that you can play this top string like that and the string directly below it in terms of gravity. This guitar happens to be in tune. I'm going to untune it. When you play them together, you want to be able to play them together. You hear that kind of sound happening. That sound means that they're not quite in tune. There's a wave, a warbling happening. And it's interesting, it's slightly different when it's too high. To me, when something is too high or sharp, the warbling sounds faster to me. If I'm a bit low. There we go. Now notice, no warbling. The closer you bring the strings together, the slower that warbling is going to be. Okay? Now I'm going to repeat the exact same thing on the next string, on the 5th string. So I was on the 6th string, or the low E, tuning the A, or 5th string. Now I'm going to take my same finger and I'm just going to bring it down. I have to position it in such a way that I can play the A and the D strings. Ooh. Now, for a while, it's going to take you some time. Is that too high? Is that too low? It's too low. Too high. Remember, you know the string below is in tune. So a little high. Now, when you're tuning, especially on a guitar, well, on acoustics, because acoustics strings tend to stretch more when they're new, and because the winding tends to move a little bit, you always want to go below and then tune up, because it keeps the tension around the tuning pegs the way it needs to be. So if I'm sharp, I want to make sure I'm lower. That'll also take some of the guesswork out of it. There we go. Then you do the same thing on the 4th string and the 3rd string. Now here, for the G string, we want to go down to the 4th fret. Because of the way the guitar is tuned, when you go to the 4th fret, that's going to give you a B. Make your adjustments. now look. We knew your high E was in tune and we knew your low E was in tune. So somewhere along the line, my approximation wasn't that great. So I go back and check. Indeed, I'm a little low. Much better. Let's check all of them. That one could come up a little. Rest of it sounds good. So, we've just tuned the guitar. Now you should be able to strum it open. It sounds good. So there's all sorts of things that'll give you reference pitches. There's all sorts of things that'll tune your guitar. I mean, if you have a smartphone for $1, you can go and download a guitar tuner. But it's good to know how to tune by ear because it gets your ear going, gets your ear started. Your ear is going to be one of the most important assets of your guitar playing. And it's not always possible to whip out your guitar tuner. You know, I mean, a lot of them, this guitar happens to have a tuner built into it, but if people are making a lot of noise, your ears actually hear better than your guitar tuners do. So it's good to know how to tune your own guitar. Okay, we've tuned the guitar. We've introduced you to various parts of the guitar, at least the ones we're going to be using today. Just to summarize a little bit more about that, we've got the bridge, sound hole. This particular guitar is cool because the strings go directly into the bridge, through the bridge, and then up. Sometimes you'll have guitars that have pegs that stick the strings in and the strings go through the body. And grab an electric guitar. We're going to use the same posture with an electric. We've got pickups. This is referred to as your neck pickup, middle pickup, bridge pickup. The pickup selector, when it's all the way forward this way, is going to be on your neck. It's all the way back, it's going to be on your bridge, and then there's various cool combinations. Now the bridge, actual bridge on an electric, many times they'll have a whammy bar, and many times they'll float, and that's why I bring this up. When you're tuning a guitar that has a floating bridge, and that means if I put pressure on it like that, I can draw it sharp if I push on it. If I had a bar, I could go down. See, I'm drawing the pitch down, drawing the pitch up. This has a huge implication on tuning. This has a huge implication on tuning. When you're tuning, and go ahead and put all of me back up real quick there. When you're tuning, and I'm adjusting the tension of one string, all the strings get affected. Let me illustrate. We've got we're not quite in tune on this one. There we go. That's better. Let's say we're sharp on my A string. Listen to what happens to my high E string. Watch, I'm gonna manipulate a different tuner, a different tuning peg, and you'll hear the change in pitch of the high E. Just got higher. It just got lower. That's because the bridge is rocking back and forth based on the overall tension of the strings. This really frustrates beginner guitar players because it seems to take so long to tune, and they'll get done tuning and they'll have adjusted the overall tension and then they have to tune all over again. That's the way floating bridges work. You have to strike a balance between all the string tensions. So if you have a guitar with a floating bridge, if you were given one or if this happens to be the one you're playing on, go get it set up from a professional guitar guy at a real guitar store and have him balance the bridge so it's in the right place and tune it up for you. And then as you're making little adjustments, you'll be able to keep the guitar in tune. But know that just as I'm about to do with this guitar, you're probably going to have to tune a few times if there's a couple strings that are way out, because you need a balance, you need a homeostasis with all of the strings. So, reference pitch. Good. Sharp. Sharp. There we go. Whoa. Sharp. Notice how I'm turning it down. There, no wave, no warble. Sharp. Good. Wow, that one's way off. Do you know what that means? It means that when I adjust this, all the other guitar strings are going to go out of tune. That's all off. I bet this is off. Yep, that one's a little off. So we got it close. Now I'm going to start all over again. Good. Oh, it affected my G string quite a bit, but the other ones seem to be doing okay. That one's still sharp. There we go. It's still not quite there. So I'm not gonna keep doing it, but this is how you tune a guitar with a floating bridge by ear. And even not by ear. You have to go and you have to comb through it several times, and gradually you'll get the right balance. I'd say in general, because I've got a couple guitars with floating bridges, I usually go through 3 to 4 times if I'm tuning fresh. If I'm just sitting down to tune, I go through it a couple times. So just be aware of that. It's not the end of the world. I love floating bridges. I love what they do. I love the way they feel on this hand, and I love the flexibility with the vibrato. But they are a little bit more of a pain to tune. So I'm going to switch back to the acoustic guitar. We're going to talk a little bit more about posture, basic right and left hand technique, and then we're going to get on to playing some real music. But before we do that, let's take a couple questions.
Okay, we do have a question about posture.
Yes.
And I'm going to bump my mic up here just a little bit. There we go. And this question is from I guess that's LBMS. Is sitting on the couch bad posture?
The couch necessarily doesn't make it bad posture, but sitting on a couch encourages bad posture. Earlier I was talking about that very thing where, if you're slouching back like this, it doesn't set your hands, either hand, up to succeed when you're playing chords or single notes or whatever. I mean, just look at the difference. When I'm like this, everything's aligned. My arm is aligned. We're going to talk a little bit more about that in a second. When I slouch back, immediately I'm put in a very awkward position. Like this. That's not cool. And even more so if you're like this. Slouching, not being like this, it's very unnatural. If you're sitting on a couch and it's a decent height, and you have a footstool, and you're sitting up like this, your couch may very well work. You just don't want to be, on your couch as though you're watching TV or having a conversation. Posture is so important for the beginning guitar player, and it's so overlooked because people, they're not used to holding the guitar and it feels awkward anyway, and so they feel like they can kind of do whatever they want. And then they can't play anything right. And then they get frustrated and they don't practice or play. If you put posture first right now, because posture, you can get posture right away, right? Like you don't have to practice it to get it. You just have to do it. If you can get that first, everything else is going to fall into place much better.
Okay, our next question is from Lisa T. And she's wondering if you could show us how to hold the pick again.
I can. Here it is. Hold your hand out like this. Make a gun. Fold that part, your first finger in like this. It's going to look like this. Thumb is all the way up. All your fingers are kind of in like this, but particularly your first finger. And then you're going to put the big part of the pick right here. Close your thumb on the pick, and you're going to be tense right now. That's okay. It's going to feel a little bit weird. Your hand's closed, but you see this part of the pick sticking out. Now you want to relax your fingers, and then relax this mechanism here. See, it was like this. Now it's like this. You're just holding it loosely. And you should be able to do this back and forth.
And maybe we can put that on one of the closer angles there if you want to move that in there.
There you go. Okay, so that when you get to the point to where you're strumming, and again, all of my posture is working together to make this possible. The way I'm sitting, I'm holding, see how loosely I'm holding it? I'm not doing this. The pick has this, it's the ability to play. And I'm also not holding it like this. That causes tension. I'm holding it like this. And as I strum, the pick moves along with the strings. And when I'm going up, there's enough play. I'm holding it loose enough, not so loose that I drop it, but loose enough to where it's not this rigid thing. That's a theme when you're playing the guitar. You want it to be loose. And your question perfectly segued into where we were going next, which is basic right hand posture and technique. So, try doing that a little bit. Don't have to keep time. Just practice holding your pick loosely. If you're not playing with a pick, don't worry about this particular portion. But do take note of what my right arm is doing. Notice my elbow, that joint is resting, not planted, but resting. And I'm strumming pretty much over the sound hole. You know, you don't, some of that can be a little unnatural. You want to just sort of let it fall into place. You know, if you're holding on to a bar or something like that and you let your body hang and things just sort of fall into place, gravity kind of, you know, straightens your back out a little bit. That's how you want it to feel when you go to your guitar. You just want it to fall into place. You don't want to, and that's why I recommend sitting this way, because that allows that to happen. You don't want to do anything that introduces tension right away. In other words, you don't want to hug your guitar too tightly and plant your arm here. You want to let it just sort of fall. Be free. Okay? I'm going to move on to the left hand next, but are there any more questions about holding the pick or general posture?
No more questions on the pick. We do have some other general questions, but if you want to.
Okay. Yeah, we'll get through the lesson here, and then we'll take the other questions. Okay. Left hand. Again, keeping all the posture in mind. We haven't played any chords yet, right? But did you notice when I was strumming how I was holding the neck? That's all we're going to work on this week for this hand. because we haven't learned anything else. I want you to put your thumb over the neck like this, curl your fingers around, and be relaxed. Just hold it like this. The palm of your hand should not be touching the back of the neck. You don't want to squeeze it like this. You want it to just rest. Let your fingers sort of rest at an angle. You could be at about the 5th fret. And just practice doing that with the pick. This should feel natural. Notice my elbow is not in. It doesn't fall naturally there when I'm like this. It just practice being down here and moving up. Get familiar with how that feels. Your only goal right now is to deaden all of the strings. This is all you're doing, and he doesn't even have to be in time, but I hope you have your guitars with you, and you're doing this along with me. Now, some common things that people do with this hand in terms of screwing it up right out of the gate are caused by bad posture, right? If I'm over here, leaning on my leg, when I go to move, my angle's automatically screwed up. If I'm doing this, if I'm sitting like this, and I'm trying to play out here, look at what I have to do. I have to do this. That doesn't work. It can work. If you already know how to play and you want to use bad posture, that's a different story. Still not great, but if you don't know how to play, you gotta track with this stuff and do it. So, let it fall into place. Okay. Now, the next thing we're going to look at is the way that we're going to communicate moving forward what to play. Obviously, I can communicate by saying, put your hand here, and I can show you because we're using video. But there's another key way to communicate, and that's called tab or tablature. If you pull up the supplemental material, or if we put the supplemental material on the screen, you can see our exercise. Very simple exercise. What does this mean? Let's look at what it means. We've got 6 lines representing the 6 strings. And it says wide open because that's the name of the exercise, the name of the little mini song that we're doing today. The lowest line on this group of lines is the lowest in pitch string. Okay, this is another one of those that gets a little confusing because you think one of them you're thinking in terms of, gravitationally or height. And the other one you're thinking in terms of pitch. But the lowest in terms of height on the tab is the lowest in terms of pitch on the guitar. Okay? Lowest line equals lowest string. The zeros that you see indicate which string is going to be played open. When something is 0, it means it is played without you putting anything on the fretboard, which is exactly what we're all about today. If there was a 1 written instead of one of those zeros, let's just say on that 6th string, the lowest string, if there was a 1 written, you'd play the 1. You'd play on the 1st fret. That's how that works. And that's all we need to know in terms of tablature today. All this other stuff doesn't really matter that much. When we say 0 on the lowest string, we're playing that. 0 on my low E string. And notice what I'm doing with this hand. I'm just letting it rest. And I'm making sure that I can, whatever string I'm supposed to play is available. Now, this is great. This is going to get us acquainted with the exercise and the tablature. We have another note to play next. We're reading left to right, just like we'd read in normal words. Now that is the 4th string up from the bottom, which is the 3rd string, right? Because the highest string on the tab is the highest in pitch. Very important to keep this stuff in mind. So we've got 6th string, and then the next note in the sequence is the 3rd string. See that? Open. So we got E, and we have G. And you can see on there it says let ring. Everything says let ring, which means you don't necessarily need to mute anything. If you want, you can just rest your other hand right here on the joint between the body and the neck, or you can rest it on the neck and just make sure all the strings are free. Or you could even rest it down here, as long as it feels natural. E string, 6th string, 3rd string next, or G. Next we've got B, the B string. It's the 2nd string from the top. And remember, the 0 just means you play the string open. And then, finally, the high E. So you see what we did? We read music there. Low E, G string or 3rd string, 2nd string, 1st string. Now each vertical line that you see that's dividing the horizontal lines communicates a measure. We don't really care about that right now. Just know that that's called measure, and it has to do with timing. We're going to go over that later. But just look at it and play the notes that are on the tab with your guitar and pick. I'm going to do it very slow. And I'll name them. 3, string number, 2, 1. I'll bet you can already do this along with me. So that's the first 2 measures that we just did, right? I'll do the first 2 again. So that'd be E. It's great if you can name the strings as you play, both in numbers and in letters. E. So the E, G, B, E. Measure 3, the 3rd measure, looks like we go to the D string, 0, so it's open. And then G string. And it looks like we go, it actually says measure 6 over it because there's, don't worry about that. Well, what? But I am looking at measure 6. So measure 5 and measure 6 are the same. They're both that D open to G open happens twice. Then measure 7, so we're on the 2nd line of what you guys can see. That was measure 6. We go to the A string, 0, then to the D string. That happens again. And then it looks like low E, G, B, E. So what you want to do is exactly what I was doing. There was no time. I was going measure by measure. I was looking at the tablature. I was looking at my hands, and I was translating. I was looking at the tablature, telling my brain what I was going to do, and making my hand do what my brain wanted to do. Question?
Yeah, I just want a couple of people in the chat are wondering, like it seems like the tab is upside down from what we're seeing on the guitar.
Yeah.
Maybe you could tell them how you're looking at your guitar when you're looking at the tab.
It is confusing, isn't it? And I said it earlier that the lowest string in pitch is actually the highest string in terms of height. But when you're looking at the tab, you got to do this. And I don't know why they did it that way. But they did. The way I look at it, I try to look at it as though well, if you're really confused about it, you can do this. That only gets you so far. But the way I do it is I beat that into my mind. Lowest line is lowest string in pitch. Lowest line is lowest string in pitch. It's the only way I've been able to really drive that into my own brain. And then visually, after a while, after you say that a couple times, it does make sense. Low string, low pitch, low line, high pitch, high line. That's going to take some practice. And that's another thing to think about. This is the first of 1 billion or more things that are going to be confusing and slightly weird and awkward and challenging. It's just the way it's going to be. But if you commit to practicing it, it's going to feel better than if you dwell in the awkwardness, if that makes any sense. There's so many of those things as a beginner, and we're gonna cover quite a bit of those. My goal is to make the pacing of this course slow enough so that those things that are weird and awkward are overcome in the context of this course. So I hope that helps. Was there any other related questions to that?
Not right now.
Okay.
We do have some other questions, but we'll let you
Cool.
finish up what you're talking about there.
Okay. So I'm going to go through this again. I'm going to do it really slow. And I'm going to name string letters this time. E. I'm not even going to worry about keeping rhythm. G. B. E. D. G. D. G. A. D. A. D. E. G. B. E. I'm going to do it again. I'm going to do numbers this time. 6, 3, 2, 1, 4, 3, 4, 3. Be looking at your guitar strings as you're doing this. Glance at your music, look back at your guitar strings. You want to imprint what you're saying and what you're playing in your mind. A, D, A, D. You should be going slow enough so that you can look at your music, look back at your guitar, pick, talk at the same time, make the connection. 6, 3, 2, 1. That's how you want to do it. Slow. Say things out loud. Say the string names. Say the string numbers. And after you've done this, I would say do what I'm doing right here for at least 15 minutes. Then throughout the week, you get to be musical with this exact exercise. Here's the track. It's called Wide Open. I'm going to play it. I'm going to play it full speed, but then I'm going to play along with it at a reduced speed. And this is available for download. Here it is. We got two measures of rest. So we've got a drum intro that helps you get started with it. I'm not going to play along, but I am going to follow along with the tab. And I'm going to be imprinting again. As I hear the guitar that's in there, I'm going to try to follow along with what's happening on the tablature. I guarantee you, even if you've never touched the guitar, never a tablature in your life, you can do this. You can. Just follow along. 6, 3, 2, 1, 4, 3, 4, 3. I'm just looking at strings. 5, 4, 5, 4, 6, Again, E, G, B, E, D, G, D, G, A, D, A, D, E, G, B, E. I'm going to be quiet now. Just listen to it. Absorb it. See if you can follow along in your head. You're not playing. You're just listening. Don't try to play along yet. Move with the groove a little bit. As you're looking at the tablature, as you're listening, as you're trying to name the strings as they go by. A, D, A, D, 6, 3, 2, 1. This is an exercise, right, in learning your strings. Now, look at your guitar. Don't play it yet. Just look at the strings that you're supposed to play as it's played for you. Say the names. D, A, D, E, G, B, E, D, 3, 2, 1. Practice and repetition. G, D, G, A, D, A, D, E, 3, 2. Mix it up. 1. Your turn. Watch those strings. Don't play yet. And the track starts over. So, what you've done, and this, as you practice, is what you always want to do. Look at your materials, get familiar with your materials, understand your materials, and then play. It's gonna be such a huge difference as opposed to just immediately tackling the guitar. And what we did is we played. We didn't worry about timing. We got acquainted with the exercise. We looked at the tablature. And then we put it down. We just listened, just like you're listening to a song. And we connected visually and audibly with what was going on. Now we're going to put things together. I'm going to slow down the track considerably. We're going to go down to 50% speed. And we're going to play it again. And I'm going to play along. I'm going to hold my pick. I'm going to make sure my posture is good. And I'm going to acknowledge that this is going to be really awkward and I'm going to make a bunch of mistakes. But if I'm focused and I'm looking at the strings and I'm looking at the tablature and I'm listening to the music, and I can do this after having hardly ever picked up the guitar before, it's great. You're already going to be able to make music with this simple example. Here it is at 50% speed. Don't even try to play along. Just watch. Oh, that might be too slow. We'll see. That's good. Say the names out loud. string, 4th string, E string, low E, G string, B string, E string. There are several tools, practice tools, that you can use when you have the supplemental content that I give you each week. I give you a track. I give you a copy of the track that has a guide in it, which is the one we're using. I give you a copy of the track which has no part in it, and that is this part. You can hear. I'll play it up to tempo, 100% speed, but you'll be able to hear it. I did mean 100% speed. Hold on. 100%. Here we go. Listen, you provide the guitar. This is a true backing track here. So then you're providing it. That's once you really know it. But there are various tools that you can use. The first one I recommend getting, if you can, we don't make any money off this stuff, but they're great practice tools that I've used and continue to use. The first one is Guitar Pro. It's a cheap piece of guitar software that allows you to download our tabs and other tabs and play them back. And you can even make your own tabs. So, I can play this exercise in Guitar Pro. So you can hear the tab back. Very helpful to see it work as you play. And our site has this functionality built into our on-demand lessons. It will soon with our live lessons. But this is great because you can use it offline, download tabs, share tabs, stuff like that. It's pretty cool. So Guitar Pro is pretty cheap. You can find some deals out there. The second piece of software that I really like to use for practicing is called Transcribe. That allows you to take a backing track and speed it up, slow it down, change the speed. So you can take something, if it's too fast, like this might very well be when you start, and slow it down to 50% speed or 70% speed, or speed it up if you want to. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to play with the guide at 70% speed. It's called Transcribe. Can you put the tab up? All right. Make it your goal this week to learn and play along with this track. If you have to slow it down, great. If you can download the Guitar Pro file and play along with it for a while at any tempo you wish, great. If you can't do either of those things, set a metronome on your phone, download a metronome app, and have a tempo and play to whatever tempo feels comfortable. After you get the exercise down, do exactly what we did on your own first. And that is just get familiar with looking at the music. Look at the music, play the note. Look at the music, play the note. Look at the music, play the next note. Look at the music, play the next note. Don't worry about time, just worry about that interpretation process. Then slowly add elements in. Listen and watch and visualize with the track as things go by, and then add in your guitar playing. What's cool about this is you're not worried about this hand at all. You're not worried about your fret hand. You're just worried about this drill of connecting your brain and your hands to the instrument and making real music and playing something that's real right away. So that's it for this week. I'm excited to be on this journey of you getting started on the guitar, and keep up on the homework. Do this, practice it, send me messages, ask me questions. Don't try to bite off more than you can chew. In other words, if you're taking this live with me, this is perfect because you can't skip ahead. Do and practice what I've asked you to practice this week, and we'll pick up next week. If you practice along with us, you're going to improve. The pacing for this course is designed to take you from point A, which is just beginning, having never touched a guitar before possibly, to point B, and end where you can play your basic chords, where you can strum a little bit. In 10 weeks, you'll be there. I guarantee you'll be there if you put in the work and you come to these events and you participate. I will also say this again. I said this at the beginning. This is week 1 of a 10-week series. Oh, man. No. Sorry. This is week 1 of a 10-week series. If you're watching this week 1, and you're not a member of JamPlay.com, this is the last one you get to see. This one's available for free, but that's it. If you want to track through and begin this journey, pop on over to JamPlay.com and become a member. We're able to offer 3 different memberships. We offer a monthly, we offer a quarterly, and we offer a 1-year membership. The 1-year membership is by far the best deal. But being 10 weeks, you're going to want to be around for a little while to get this. And remember, you can watch them live, and if you can't watch them live, you can catch everything on demand. You can view all the supplemental content, you can download everything. So, if you really want to begin this journey and you're not a member, I encourage you to become a member. So, with that in mind, we have general Q&A.
Okay. First off, someone was wondering what's the best way to send you a question.
The best way to send me a question?
Yes, this week, like during the week.
During the week. Private message on JamPlay is the best way to send me a message. You have to be a member to do that too. But you look me up, look up my profile on JamPlay, and send me a message, and I'll answer it. I'll answer it this week.
Okay, and then our next question is from Thomas, wondering, is it better to start with a pick or not?
I think it's better to start with a pick. You may want to do finger style stuff later. You may want to experiment with strumming with your fingers, and we'll go over maybe a little bit of that later. But using a pick is a fundamental technique, and even if that's not going to be a huge part of your guitar playing later, as a beginner, it's one of those things kind of like this. And I'm going to teach you basic ways to learn chords, basic chord shapes, but and one of those is going to be G later on. Now, I don't play this actual G very often. I play a variation of that, but I learned that first. And that's sort of the way it is with a pick. There's going to be all sorts of things like that. Learn the basic framework. They're not rules, but they're basic framework and basic guideline. If you can always not play with a pick later if you already know how to play with a pick. But it would be horrible to kind of avoid the pick and then be in a position where you really want to play with a pick, and then your pick technique is behind some of your other things on the guitar. That's a drag.
Okay. We have another pick-related question. This is from Reefer Driver. Is a pick, or is there a different stiffness? And is it different for electric versus acoustic?
Good question. A pick is kind of like your favorite brand of socks, or that's probably the best way I can put it. There is no right pick. There are different comfort levels and maybe different things that I'd suggest starting off. I like to use slightly thicker picks on an electric than I do on an acoustic because the electric strings are a little slinkier. Acoustic strings are a little harder, and you beat on the acoustic more when you start strumming. So I use thinner picks. I don't like big picks. Like this is a great pick. I like this particular pick, and you can zoom in on the pick hand or whatever, and I can show you a little bit. Yeah, let's see, we'll do that there. So it's a standard size pick. It's also got these little grooves in it, so I don't drop it as much. And it's a little bit flexible. You know, I can bend it a little bit. I like using this for both electric and acoustic. This works really well. This is a medium. For when I get to doing, more like single note picking and scales and stuff like that for electric, I generally use a Jazz 3 pick, which is a thicker, smaller pick. But for now, I would start with a medium, normal-looking pick. And then from there, buy a couple different flavors and see what you like. Buy some smaller ones, buy some big flappy picks, buy some hard ones, some real soft ones, and see what works well for you.
Okay. Our next question is from Dennis, and he's wondering, is a plug-in tuner more accurate than one on the Headstock? Seems to me that it is, but he's not 100% sure.
Not necessarily. Headstock tuners are great because you don't need the cord, and you don't need, they're very battery efficient, like they run off of watch batteries. Headstock tuners are great, and they pick up the vibration, so a mic, they often work quite well even in slightly noisy situations. I like headstock tuners. It really just depends on what works. I think for electric guitar, I definitely prefer a plug-in because the vibrations, although vibrations, they even work on an electric, but not quite as well as they do on an acoustic.
Okay. And our next question is from D. Thomas. How do we know what is the right action?
You don't. Right now, you don't. So you want to take your guitar in, and right action, I'm assuming you mean the height of the strings and the way your guitar is set up. If it's not, rephrase the question so I can answer it correctly. But if you're talking about action in terms of guitar setup, you don't. At this point, you don't. You want to take your guitar, and this is something that if you haven't done yet and you're just starting, go get your guitar professionally looked at and set up. They'll adjust the string height, the action. They'll look at your fretboard. They'll, maybe put a new set of strings on. They'll straighten your neck. They'll look at your nut. This is the nut up here. It holds the strings on this end. They'll look at your bridge. And they'll make sure that everything is as good as it can possibly be. You don't want this to get in the way of playing this, right? You want everything to feel and be right, so that you're not dealing with a particular guitar situation that is limiting you.
Okay. And our next one's from Mycroft. Are there different sizes of acoustic guitars? How do you choose the right one?
There are different sizes. It's a good question. And this is one of those questions that you're going to hear me say this a lot. How do you do something right, or what's the right thing to do? There is no right size of an acoustic guitar. There's no right way to hold the guitar even. There's just maybe a better way for beginners to hold the guitar. There might be better sizes for the size that you are. But really, it boils down to getting comfortable. You have to go out and try things and see what's comfortable. And there is no right answer. Like, it should feel right to hold a dreadnought size guitar. No, maybe not. One of the main reasons I started on electric is because it just felt better in my hands. Before I even played at all, I just liked the way it felt. But a lot of people don't feel that way. They like playing an acoustic. It doesn't mean that's the right one, but it was the most comfortable for me, so I did it. Some people like the size of a nylon string and the feel of a nylon string, so they want to do that. Great. My mom's that way. She's a little smaller, like the smaller body, and she doesn't play classical guitar, but she liked the feel of it. It worked great for her. So it really is a matter, and even if you don't play at all, you can go in, and this is what I did when I first got my first guitar. I just went in and I held the guitar. Held it. Did my little strumming thing, did this. Picked it up, Same thing with the electric. It's amazing. You'll be able to tell a lot, especially with electric guitars. There are a lot of things that, you just put it in your lap and it feels a certain way, and you'll like it or you won't. And it's okay if you do or don't. But I love the way a Strat feels when I'm sitting or standing. I love it. It's my favorite guitar. I love the body. Some people really like the way Les Pauls feel when they have them in their hands. They like the beefy, more wood, heavier, more substantial. Some people like the feel of a more electric acoustic, like a Gretsch. They like the bigger body, but not quite as big as an acoustic. There's all sorts of things. But so the short answer to your question is, you go to a store. If you don't have one already, just go in and hold the guitar. You don't feel like you have to play or impress anybody. Just go in and hold it and see what feels comfortable.
That's great. This one's from Paul Wolf. He says, I'm teaching my 7-year-old daughter to play. Should I teach her to tune right away or just tune it for her?
Both. I would tune it for her so that she can, start doing this exercise or whatever, start doing basic things. But in the process, show her how to do it so that when it gets off, she's not having to say, Dad, give her the tools. And but make sure it's in good shape for her. Absolutely do both, though.
All right, and this one is from Danson Diane, RN. How do you know if you have a floating bridge? I'm not sure if I have one.
If you do this, and you put weight on your bridge, and it draws the pitch sharp or high, it floats. If it doesn't go up, and I mean a lot, like that's a lot, right? I can get another guitar with a non-floating bridge, and do that, and it would increase the pitch just a little bit, but it wouldn't be near like that. Now, if your guitar when you do this doesn't do that, but when you do this, lift under it, it goes flat, then you have a tremolo system, but it's fixed, meaning it won't go up and down. It rests on the body.
Okay. Next is from Kathy's Guitar. She's wondering if you could show the correct posture
Yes,
again real quick.
Absolutely. I'll do it on acoustic first. And actually, Chris, if you'd zoom out just a little bit on the main cam, they might be able to see a little bit more of what's going on. Okay, so I am sitting like this, and you can get a look at the chair again too. Sit down, sit straight, get my footstool. I'm going to put the footstool on my non-dominant foot, like that. Pick up the guitar, rest the guitar on my non-dominant leg, spread my legs apart just a little bit so that it rests in a natural, you don't want to be doing this, that's not natural, the guitar's going to fall. You want it to be, you want your legs spread far enough apart so that the guitar stays without having to do anything. Then you put your hands, grab your pick, take your left hand for now and just rest it around the 5th fret with your thumb over, don't hug. And then drape your arm over while keeping your back as straight as possible. If you find yourself doing this too much, raise your footstool so that you can, in fact, I might want to raise this 1 notch to illustrate that. I'm going to raise it 2 notches.
And someone's asking if you know what kind of chair that is.
Nope. I don't. A black armless chair. Oh, that's the problem with footstools, though. You knock them over a lot. I knock mine over all the time. Okay, I've increased it 2 notches. I'm going to put this down. That might be... That's actually kind of nice. Might be 1 too high. So you got to... The balance is you don't want to be like this or too, crowded. You want it to fall naturally. So I'm at the second lowest position on the footstool, but it's a factor of how high my chair is also. You don't need a variable height chair if you just need a comfortably height chair if you have a footstool. That's good. That's probably where I would be, right there. It allows the guitar to stay. It allows me to go over. That feels nice. Electric guitar. For me, an electric guitar is harder to not slouch because it's smaller. You don't have the body keeping you. So I'm going to lower it. Start by lowering it here for the electric. Same deal though. If I'm like this, should just sit. It's not going to sit if my legs are too close together or they're too far apart. That's the cool thing about this posture is it's there. There you have it. Same sort of thing. Now here you can't really rest your arm as much because it's not this big thing, but just have a normal standing or sitting up posture and let your arm sort of fall where there it is. All right, you can zoom back in if you want.
Okay. Get this question for you from Lisa T. She's wondering if a cheap electric guitar would be okay to start, or will it get in the way?
Yeah, good question. I'm glad you asked. Having a properly set up, well-playing guitar is more important for a beginner guitar player than it is for an experienced guitar player. By far. An experienced guitar player can deal with, they'll probably get annoyed, but they can deal with fret buzz or maybe even to an extent something that doesn't play quite in tune. They can compensate for it a little bit. If your guitar isn't up to the task, if it's too cheap and won't stay in tune, if it's not properly set up, then it's the same thing with bad posture. You're going to be looking to your guitar to perform in such a way, but you don't really know, you don't know what you don't know yet, right? And so there might be things on the guitar that aren't functioning properly that you're going to blame on yourself. Man, every time I play a note on the B string, it buzzes. What am I doing wrong with my hand? Well, maybe you've got a bad fret. Maybe you've got, maybe your intonation's off. These are things that an experienced guitar guy at a store can set up for you and help you with. Price, it doesn't mean that if it's inexpensive that it automatically isn't going to work for you. In general, I recommend, if you haven't purchased a guitar already and you want to get one, I recommend if you're a beginner, and this might sound a little weird, but set yourself up to start right. You want to spend between $400 and $600 on a new guitar. It might feel a bit expensive, but you're getting into a range where you could play that guitar for the rest of your life and it would serve you well. But if it's properly set up and it's in that price range, you're fairly guaranteed that the guitar isn't going to get in the way. It's going to serve you as a beginner. And I can't stress this enough. It's more important. People get this backward all the time. They think, oh, I'm a really good guitar player. I should have a really nice guitar. Maybe. You're a beginner, a bare bones beginner, and it's the most awkward, weird thing that you're holding at the moment, and you better have a nice guitar as a beginner. So $400 to $600 properly set up.
Okay, we have a couple of questions about the exercise.
Mm-hmm.
And one from Troy. He's asking what key the exercise is in.
You're getting ahead of us. There's my answer.
Okay. That's going to nix the next question, too.
The key is E minor. It's in E minor. And if you've already started a little bit, then, that's fine to know. I want to really encourage you, though, to asking questions is great. I mean, I love the questions. And I think it's good to maybe push the envelope a little bit, but the key is totally irrelevant to playing the exercise. It's more important that you're looking at the strings, you're getting the point and the intent of the exercise, which is memorize the string names. Feel what it feels like to play in time with music, using the strings. Get acquainted with where they are as you're playing. That's the intent.
All right. This one is from Keatle. Should your left thumb be over the neck or resting behind it?
At this point, it doesn't matter at all. There's applications for both. Right now, if you're just resting, because remember, we're not using this hand at all. We'll get into this hand a little bit more next week. You can just put your thumb just like this and just, rest on it like that. There's applications where you want your thumb behind the neck, and there's applications where you want your thumb over the neck. Right now, it doesn't matter at all.
Okay. And this one is from Cook Nice. How do you feel about learning on a classical guitar versus a standard acoustic or steel string?
I think if you're comfortable on it and it stays in tune and it's set up well, great. Like I said, my mom doesn't play classical guitar per se, but she's got a nylon string classical guitar and strums it, and it's the size is better for her. The strings are easier to push down, it works great for her. I think that's great.
Okay, and that's all the questions we have right now.
Cool. All right. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining me. Join me next week for part 2. We're going to learn your first chord. We're going to talk a little bit about strumming a little bit. And we're going to play along with another familiar sounding example. So if you're not already a JamPlay member, pop on over to jamplay.com and at the bare minimum, sign up for a few months so you can finish the course. And hope to see you next week. Again, send me private messages. If you're a JamPlay member, ask me questions. I'll do my best to answer them for you. Thanks for hanging out. We'll see you next week.